Hi, I'm Ravi Samlat, editor for Morningstar India, and joining me today is Dhaval Kapadia. Dhaval heads our investment management division in India, and today we're gonna discuss about how investors can navigate their portfolios in a low interest rate regime. So thanks, Dhaval, for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure is mine. Thank you.
So, the whole interest rates are at rock bottom right now, and they are unlikely to go up anytime, soon. So, in this scenario, what options, bank FD investors have in terms of, investing in the fixed income debt funds?
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, debt funds present a good opportunity or a good option for, debt investors. People who are investing today into fixed deposits can consider debt mutual funds. And, debt mutual funds, within debt mutual funds, there are different categories of funds or different types of funds. For instance, you have, here I'm taking out the liquid kind of funds, which are essentially meant for short-term parking. I'm looking at more sort of, 2 to 3 year plus kind of, a holding period. So I'm assuming that the FD investor has a horizon of at least 2 to 3 years, when he's considering other options as such, he or she. So within debt funds, the typical categories that you have, broadly, they are sort of, split, or they can be sort of separate or segregated based on two parameters. One is the duration of the underlying portfolio in terms of, the securities that they hold, what is the maturity profile or what is the underlying maturity of those, securities as such. The second aspect that can be used to, categorize debt mutual funds is the credit quality in terms of the credit rating of the underlying holdings of the funds. So typically, the categories that you have, range from, the short-term category, which typically invest. So these are funds that typically invest in bonds that are maturing in, 1 to 3 year kind of a period. And in terms of credit quality, obviously this could vary based on the strategy, the type of funds that you're looking at. So typically you have, two sets of funds, one which are, investing in AAA rated papers such as, the banking and PSU or the corporate bond fund categories, which invest, as the name suggests, in either, banking and PSU bonds or AAA rated bonds, as the case might be. The other is categories within the short term space, such as short term funds or credit risk funds and so on, which could invest in a mix of AAA, AA, and A rated paper. So that is one bucket that one can look at. And typically, why is it segregated separately is because the 1 to 3 year would tend to be more steadier in terms of returns. Obviously, the credit quality is an important thing to look at, but in terms of returns, it would tend to be more steadier. It wouldn't fluctuate too much along with interest rate movements. So that can be one part of the portfolio. The other category that you can look at within the debt mutual fund space is the medium to long duration and the long duration bond fund. So essentially, the medium to long duration refers to funds that are investing in the 4 to 7 year maturity bucket. So they will be holding securities or bonds that mature, within 4 to 7 year kind of a period. And the long duration refers to, funds that invest in, it could be government securities, it could be corporate bonds that are maturing, beyond a 7 year kind of a period. Now, typically these funds, tend to do, well in a scenario where interest rates are coming down, or interest rates are steady. They don't do well when interest rates are moving up. So it is not advisable to invest in these funds when interest rates are moving up in a way, right? So the other benefit of these funds is that the yields on the underlying securities or bonds that they're holding will tend to be higher than the short-term bonds. So for example, today, like I mentioned earlier, some of these short-term bond funds, such as, the banking and PSU or corporate bond funds, typically they would be offering yields in the range of about 5.5%, as of today. Whereas, bonds or bond funds that are investing in the 4 to 7 or the 7 year plus maturity bucket, the yields will be in the range of about 6.5 to 7%. So clearly, about a 1.5% additional yield that you would earn on these bonds. So I would suggest that, maybe a fixed income investor, somebody who's looking at options for fixed deposits, can construct a portfolio with these three categories. So typically, it's like, building a cricket team of different players, right? You have a few batsmen, you have a few specialist bowlers, and you have a couple of all-rounders. So on the fixed income portfolio, you could have, maybe about 40-50% of the money going towards short-term funds. It could be a mix of, banking and PSU corporate bond or credit risk if you are willing to take that additional level of credit risk in your portfolio. Maybe 20-25% can go into the medium to long duration, which is the 4 to 7 year bucket, which consists of bond funds and dynamic bond funds and so on, income funds, and maybe about 10 to 20% in the long duration, which is a 7 year plus kind of funds, which includes typically gilt funds or constant maturity funds. So that's how I think one can construct a debt mutual fund portfolio. And just very quickly is that obviously the other benefit that you have versus fixed deposits is taxation is more beneficial for debt mutual fund investors, particularly if you're investing for more than 3 year kind of, if your holding period is more than 3 years. After 3 years, the taxation is lower, and you have the indexation benefit also that comes in. So in a way, your effective tax rate, it can be much lower than what you might pay on your fixed deposits, especially if your tax, if your tax slab, if your your income falls in a higher tax slab as such. So yeah, that's how one can look at debt mutual funds. Yeah.
Sure. So you mentioned about banking and PSU funds and corporate bond funds. So and we are seeing a lot of traction in these two categories. So why is it that investors are rushing towards this category, and are these funds very low risk profile funds for investors, and what kind of investment horizon should investors have while investing in these two
Sure,
categories?
sure, sure. Yeah, I think that's a good question, in the sense that over the last 2 years or so, we've seen this, so-called, I would term it as a flight to safety in the bond market. So essentially, we've seen, people moving away from, funds that were investing in medium to lower credit rated papers. So there were funds within the short-term space, or particularly the credit risk funds that were investing in those papers. And we saw, some incidents of downgrades or defaults in some of these papers that some of these credit risk funds were holding. And because of that fear, we saw money move out of these categories into the more sort of categories which are perceived as safer, such as banking and PSU and corporate bond funds, right? And so this happened in 2019, and in 2020 this happened after the Franklin Templeton issue sort of broke out in a way. And the reason people are choosing banking in PSU and corporate bond funds is because of how these funds are defined in terms of their investment mandates. So typically banking and PSU funds need to invest a minimum of 80% in bonds issued by banks and public sector entities, right? Similarly, corporate bond funds need to invest at least 80 odd percent in AAA rated paper, right? So from that point of view, these categories of funds and the instruments that they're investing in are perceived to be much more safer in terms of credit quality. And that's the reason we've seen investors move away because of the economic scenario as well, where we've seen an economic slowdown. Obviously now the economy is recovering, but then 2020 we know the challenges due to the pandemic and so on and so forth. So there were concerns that there could be further downgrades and defaults, and that's why you saw investors moving towards the banking and PSU and the corporate bond sort of categories as such.
Right. You also mentioned about, credit risk funds. So, how should investors look at credit risk funds at this juncture? Should they, completely avoid these funds? And what would be your advice to investors who have already invested in such funds? Should they wait?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's an interesting point, right, for credit risk funds at this stage, because what has happened over the last few months, as we spoke earlier, that money, investors have moved, money has moved out of some of these categories into, or some of these funds, and into more safer kind of categories, perceived categories, such as banking and PSU and corporate bond funds. But with that shift, what has also happened is that the demand for AAA rated and banking and PSU kind of paper has sort of increased. So, with that increase in demand versus supply, the yields and the spreads on those papers. So spreads is nothing but the return, or the interest that you earn over, say, a 3 year government security or a 3 year bond. What is it that you're earning in a 3 year banking and PSU paper, or what is the yield that you're earning additionally? Because there is a slight element of risk, the yield would tend to be higher. Now, this spread between the government security and the AAA rated paper has come down quite a lot. So in other words, the yields have come down over the last couple of years because of this, sudden demand in buying those kind of papers. So therefore, this category, although in terms of credit quality looks quite safe, but in terms of yields, the return has come down quite a bit, and the spreads are now lower than what you would have earned otherwise in normal times. So the additional return that you get from holding a banking and PSU paper versus say 3-year government security, that additional return has come down much below, or the spread or the difference has come down much below its long-term average. Uh, on the other hand, what has also happened is that on the credit risk category, because again of this demand supply issue, so people moving out, so there has been more of some bit of selling pressure, at least during the early part of 2020, when we saw this shift as such happening, because of which there has been more selling, and more sort of the yields on those papers have not come down as much. So the double A or the double A minus or single A rated segment, where the credit risk funds invest in, so those yields or spreads have not come down as much as the triple A spreads have come down or yields have come down on those bonds. So I would think that I would argue that the credit risk segment now is looking slightly more attractive for two reasons. One is the yields and the spreads, like I said, have not come down as much. They're still above their long-term averages. And secondly, the economic environment is also improving, right? So with the measures that RBI took, last year, to counter the pandemic, to, help medium enterprises, the MSMEs and the other corporates in terms of, supporting them in terms of liquidity measures and so on and so forth. The concern around downgrades and defaults has reduced, and now at least in many sectors, if not across, and therefore you're seeing that, and with the economic recovery also picking up to a certain extent, I would think probably out of a fixed income portfolio, one can look at about a 10 to 15% kind of allocation to a moderate credit risk strategy with a diversified portfolio, and a strong sort of investment process. So that's how I would think of it.
Right. Sure, Dhaval. So, equity markets are also at a all-time high. And so what would be your advice to investors who have been, traditionally investing in bank fixed deposits, who have no exposure to equity, who might want to suddenly, migrate to equity, looking at the kind of returns that we have seen?
Correct, correct. So I think, clearly equity is meant for somebody who's got a long-term investment horizon. So I think that investment horizon is very important, right? And uh, understanding the risk appetite is also important, right? Because we know that typically equity, is important because it helps create wealth over the long term, and it also helps you protect against inflation. Like today, where fixed deposit returns are or interest rates are, they are hardly sort of beating inflation, if at all, right? So but from a long-term investor perspective, you need to, if you've got long-term goals such as creating a kitty for your retirement or planning for a child's education or any other such long-term goals. When I say long-term, I'm referring to 5-year, 10-year kind of periods. So I think some proportion of equity is essential in the portfolio. Now, for somebody who's never done it in the past, right? I mean, who's always invested in fixed deposits, I think they can start in a measured way. So they can probably look at multi-asset funds such as balanced funds or balanced advantage funds, which invest in a mix of equity and debt, and probably invest through the SIP route. I mean, that's another thing that investors can do. So don't I would suggest that it's not as if one should go whole hog, or invest in lump sum, or make those kind of aggressive investments into equity, but maybe do it in a measured way. So maybe start with, like I said, balanced advantage or a balanced kind of category of funds, and invest through the SIP route, and then gradually build the portfolio in that direction.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dhaval, for sharing your valuable insights. And I think it will be very helpful for advisors and investors to kind of navigate their portfolio at this juncture. For Morningstar, I'm Ravi. Thanks for watching.